Time now for Focus, Libya and the military strategy that helped the rebels combat Gaddafi. Outnumbered, outgunned and outmaneuvered, that was the situation of the rebels some 6 months ago. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1973 to protect Libyan civilians from Muammar Gaddafi's forces. The rebels added up to little more than a determined but ordinary bunch of people who rose up against a regime that denied them basic rights. Facing a regime armed to the teeth with imported arms, paid for by the very oil of the Libyan nation, few on the outside gave the rebels a chance against such a military machine. So what played in their favour, and how great a role did the NATO campaign play? Remember, it was Russia that criticised the NATO bombing, saying they went too far, helping the rebel cause. We'll have more on this issue from Walid Fares of the National Defence University in the USA after our special Libya Focus report.
They were ill-prepared, disorganised, some even called them undisciplined. But these men all had one goal: put an end to the Gaddafi regime. On February 23rd, Libyan rebels took over Benghazi, declaring it their new capital. 6 months on, they're in Tripoli. The question: how could these men, most of whom have never had any military training, stand up to the country's armed forces? On March 17th, the UN Security Council voted a resolution allowing the international community to use all measures necessary to put an end to the violence in Libya. In other words, they gave the green light for international airstrikes. 2 days later, France held a meeting on Libya. It was the beginning of the international military campaign.
C'est une décision grave.
This is a difficult decision that we have been forced to make. Alongside its Arab, European and North American partners, France has chosen to take its place in history.
Son rôle devant l'histoire.
The first warplanes en route for Tripoli flew under the French flag, taking out tanks to prevent the Libyan army from shooting at civilians. 1 week after the operation began, NATO took over the reins.
Our goal is to protect civilians and civilian-populated areas under threat of attack from the Gaddafi regime. NATO will implement all aspects of the UN resolution. Nothing more, nothing less.
Nothing more, nothing less. A perfect summary of what the alliance hoped to do. Officially, they did not back the rebels nor provide military know-how or weapons, but in fact, member countries participated in more than just airstrikes.
England, France and Italy, they sent advisors to help us, to show us how to organize our liberated cities.
Late June, France even went one step further, admitting that it provided arms to rebel forces. But when asked for the details about how France helped tip the scale in favor of the rebels, the French foreign minister dodged the question.
You know the answer to this question. But now what we're interested in is the future. We have done what was required to reach the objectives we had set. And we have clearly stated that at each and every moment we were operating was in the limits of international law.
Alain Juppé says the past 6 months were not a stalemate. Still, the fact that rebels have finally reached Tripoli is a relief for NATO members who didn't expect the conflict to draw out this long. Many in the international community say this is not the end. They estimate it could take days or even weeks to bring down Gaddafi and his regime once and for all.
Carla Vesterheide there with our Focus report on the situation in Libya. Let's now bring in Walid Fares, who joins us from Washington. Mr. Fares, thank you once again for being with us here on France 24. To begin, sure. I'd like to ask you, what do you think of the role played by Nicolas Sarkozy in this whole affair?
Well, the French president was a central figure in, first of all, raising the issue of Libya as an important international issue, mobilizing his associates, his allies inside Europe, and of course being a pillar in the NATO intervention. He had to have a good association with the Obama administration, and based on this, the Libyan rebels have obtained an incredible international ally.
Do you feel that it was the rebels who, if this situation is won, it was the rebels that won it, or it was NATO?
Well, that's a very difficult equation. This is how we address it. Had NATO alone acted against Gaddafi from the air, that wouldn't have changed much. Had the rebels engaged against Gaddafi, and they began in February of this year, they were beaten I we remind all of us that it was NATO Air Force, French aircraft that stopped the advance on Benghazi. So it's the marriage, if you want, between the rebel forces on the ground, NATO in the air and over the sea, and diplomatically as well, that degraded Gaddafi's forces, transformed actually the Gaddafi forces from an army by degrading anti-aircraft, long-range missiles, long-range artillery, tanks, into a huge militia. That's how the rebels became a militia, and now they are on their way, hopefully, to become the nucleus of the new army.
Do you think the United States should have lent its support earlier?
Yes, there is a debate in Washington, and many voices are stating that the United States should have engaged earlier in terms of support that would have advanced the campaign much earlier. They have the defenders of the administration who are saying it would have shown the United States, again, in a position of trying to lead, trying to bully, trying to force some sort of American solution. So the debate is still open, and the jury is still out in the sense that when we will see the end of the operation, not just the military operation, but the political operation, that would be the establishment of a real government, hopefully democratic government in Tripoli, that would be the answer to the American choice.
Walid Fares, are the rebels, in your opinion, ready to make that government, to take hold of a country and turn it into a democracy?
Rebel leaders, especially the former bureaucrat, politicians, former military, former ambassadors of the Transitional Council, have been saying and continue to insist that they can do it, that they know the various departments and ministries, that they're going to move soon to Tripoli and manage the affairs of the state. But others also within the opposition, the Libyan opposition, and we concur with some among them, see that there are two challenges. One major challenge is going to be the remnants of the Gaddafi regime. Not the Gaddafi regime, this is over, but his remnants. Pockets of resistance in Sirte, in the south, terrorism that could be employed by former soldiers and officers of the ancient regime. That could be a problem for a while. But the second political problem, or could become more than a political problem, is the unity inside the council. We all know that you have secular elements, secular leaders, those who are in charge today, and you have on the ground those Islamist militias. So if the time will come where they're going to decide over the future of Libya, you're going to have some sort of tension between these two groups, that would be a major challenge for the future of this government.
Complex equation indeed. Walid Fares, thank you very much indeed for joining us as ever here on France 24. That's Walid Fares from the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. That concludes our focus on the situation in Libya. Stay with us here on France 24. More news to come.
France 24 on your iPad. Keep up to date on international news in real time, whether you're at home or on the move. France 24's worldwide coverage now on your iPad. Reports from the field, debates, interviews, accessible anywhere, anytime, and it's all free. France 24 on the iPad. The news, wherever and whenever you want it.